My future mother-in-law ruined my grandmother's vintage wedding dress with scissors, just hours before our engagement party, then started stalking us when we went no contact I to 5F. Have been engaged to my fiancé, Ronald, to 8M for 3 months. We've been a couple for 4 years, and I truly believed I understood his family well, his mother, Linda, for 9F, and father, Robert, 51M, always seemed amiable during our visits. His older sister, Patricia, 31F, resides across the country, so I'd only met her twice at family gatherings. Ronald proposed last December, and we scheduled our engagement party for March. Everything was progressing smoothly until the dress situation arose. My grandmother, Helen, passed away 2 years ago, leaving me her wedding dress from 1952. It's a stunning ivory silk gown featuring delicate lace sleeves and pearl buttons down the back. This dress holds immense sentimental value as my grandmother wore it when she married my grandfather after his return from the Korean War. When I mentioned to Ronald my intention to wear the dress to our engagement party, he adored the idea. The dress required some modifications because my grandmother was taller than I, but nothing extensive. I entrusted it to a seamstress specializing in vintage apparel, and her work was flawless. The dress fit me perfectly. 2 weeks before the engagement party, Linda visited our apartment to assist with planning. She requested to see the dress, so I presented it to her. She scrutinized it closely, feeling the fabric and examining its construction. She remarked that it appeared quite old-fashioned, and inquired if I was certain I wished to wear something so outdated to such a significant event. I elaborated on its sentimental value, explaining how deeply it meant to me to honor my grandmother's memory. Linda nodded, stating she understood, but her tone seemed peculiar. She continuously commented on how contemporary brides typically favored modern styles. She proposed we go shopping together for a new dress, offering to pay for it as an engagement gift. I thanked her but politely declined, reiterating the importance of wearing my grandmother's dress. The conversation grew uncomfortable when Linda began discussing family traditions. She mentioned that in her family, mothers always helped select their daughters-in-law's important dresses. She claimed her own mother had assisted with her wedding dress, and she had helped Patricia choose hers 5 years prior. Linda appeared to interpret my decision as a personal rejection of her involvement in the wedding preparations. Ronald noticed the tension and attempted to ease the situation. He informed his mother that he fully supported my choice and believed the vintage dress was ideal for me. Linda didn't dispute further, but she departed our apartment earlier than planned that evening. Over the next week, Linda contacted me 3 times to discuss the dress. Each conversation followed the same pattern. She would begin by inquiring about other wedding preparations, then gradually redirect the conversation toward the dress. She kept suggesting alternatives and offering to take me shopping. She even located images of modern engagement dresses online and texted them to me, accompanied by messages praising their beauty. I started avoiding her calls as the pressure became overwhelming. Ronald spoke with his father, Robert, about it, and Robert suggested Linda was simply excited about the wedding and eager to help. He recommended we involve her in other aspects of the planning, which we did. We asked her to assist with selecting the flowers and the menu for the engagement party. This seemed to mollify her for a few days. The engagement party was scheduled for a Saturday evening at Ronald's parents' home. They possess a spacious backyard with a lovely garden, which Linda had adorned with string lights and flowers. Approximately 40 guests were invited, including both their families and close friends. I had the dress professionally cleaned one final time and hung it meticulously in our bedroom closet. On Friday evening, the day before the party, Linda called and asked if she could arrive early Saturday morning to help me prepare. She offered to style my hair and apply my makeup, suggesting it would be a special bonding experience for us. I agreed, hoping it might help mend our relationship after the dress disagreements. Linda arrived at our apartment at 9 a.m., carrying a professional-grade makeup kit, stating she had taken cosmetology classes in her youth. She appeared significantly more relaxed than she had in recent weeks, and we had a pleasant conversation while she worked on my hair. She styled it in an elegant updo that would perfectly complement the vintage dress. After completing my hair and makeup, Linda requested to see the dress once more, claiming she wanted to ensure my hairstyle suited the neckline. I retrieved the dress from the closet and laid it on the bed. Linda examined it again, caressing the fabric and scrutinizing the alterations. She asked me to try it on so she could see the complete ensemble. I went into the bathroom to change, and upon my reappearance, Linda gasped. She declared I looked absolutely stunning and that the dress was even more exquisite than she remembered. She took several photos of me with her phone and seemed genuinely thrilled with how everything came together. Linda then inquired if she could make a tiny adjustment to the sleeves. claiming they appeared slightly uneven and that her sewing skills could rectify the issue. She assured me it would only take a few minutes and would make the dress look even more perfect. I hesitated, reluctant to have anything altered so close to the party. But Linda was very persuasive. She insisted she just wanted everything to be absolutely perfect for such an important day. I agreed to let her examine the sleeves, but I insisted on removing the dress first. I changed back into my regular clothes and handed Linda the dress. She laid it on the bed and closely inspected the sleeves with a small pair of scissors she had brought in her sewing kit. She claimed she could see precisely what needed correction. What transpired next still feels surreal to me. Instead of making a minor adjustment to the sleeves, Linda began cutting large sections off the dress. She completely severed both sleeves, then started shortening the skirt. I stood there in shock for several seconds before I could react. When I finally found my voice, I shrieked at her to stop, but she had already destroyed most of the dress. Linda looked up at me with a peculiar expression and stated the dress needed modernization. She contended she was assisting me by updating the style to something more suitable. For a young woman, she had cut off the beautiful lace sleeves, shortened the skirt by at least 8 inches, and removed several pearl buttons. The dress was utterly ruined. I snatched what remained of the dress from her hands and surveyed the damage. The alterations were irreversible. Decades of family history had been obliterated in less than 2 minutes. Linda stood there, clutching the scissors and pieces of fabric, still insisting she had been trying to help. Ronald rushed into the bedroom after hearing my scream. When he witnessed his mother's actions, his face turned ashen. He gazed at the ruined dress for a prolonged moment, then looked at his mother with an expression I had never seen before. He asked her what she had done, and Linda reiterated her explanation about modernizing the dress. Ronald commanded his mother to leave her apartment immediately. Linda protested that she had been attempting to help and that I was overreacting. She asserted the dress was merely old fabric, and that we could easily find a superior replacement. Ronald raised his voice and told her to get out. Linda gathered her belongings and departed, but not before delivering one final comment about my ungratefulness for her efforts to assist. After Linda left, Ronald and I sat on the bed, staring at the remnants of my grandmother's dress. The engagement party was scheduled to begin in 6 hours, and I had nothing appropriate to wear. More significantly, a precious family heirloom had been destroyed by someone I had trusted. Ronald apologized repeatedly for his mother's actions, stating he couldn't comprehend what had possessed her. We canceled the engagement party. Ronald contacted all the guests, explaining we had an unforeseen family emergency. Most people were understanding, though we didn't disclose the specific details. Ronald's father, Robert, called an hour later inquiring what was wrong, and Ronald relayed the entire story. Robert remained silent for a long time, then stated he would speak with Linda. The remainder of Saturday was spent managing the aftermath. I called my mother and informed her of what occurred. She was horrified and wished to drive over immediately to console me. I also contacted my Aunt Sarah, my grandmother's daughter. She had been eagerly anticipating seeing me wear the dress, and was devastated upon learning of its destruction. Ronald tried calling his mother several times, but she didn't answer. Robert called back in the evening, stating Linda was claiming the entire incident was a misunderstanding. According to her account, she had been attempting to make minor adjustments and had inadvertently cut too much. Robert didn't sound convinced by her explanation, but he asked us to consider that it might have been an honest mistake. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I envisioned Linda mutilating my grandmother's dress. The loss of the dress was heartbreaking, but the betrayal was worse. Linda had deliberately destroyed something she knew was irreplaceable and deeply meaningful to me. Her excuse about modernizing the dress proved it was no accident. Sunday morning, Patricia called from California. She had learned about the canceled engagement party from her father and wanted to know what happened. Ronald recounted the full story, and Patricia was quiet for an extended period. Finally, she uttered something that chilled me to the bone. She informed Ronald that their mother had done something similar when Patricia got married. Patricia explained that Linda had insisted on being heavily involved in her wedding preparations. When Patricia selected a dress Linda disapproved of, Linda had tried to convince her to change it. Patricia had refused, and Linda had seemingly relented at the time. However, the week before the wedding, Linda had taken the dress to be altered without Patricia's permission. The seamstress had made changes Patricia detested, but it was too late to rectify them before the wedding. This revelation changed everything. Linda's destruction of my dress wasn't a misunderstanding or an accident. It was a calculated act by someone who couldn't accept that others had the right to make their own choices about significant events in their lives. Ronald was visibly shaken by his sister's disclosure. He had always perceived his mother as loving, though perhaps a bit overbearing. Learning that she had a pattern of interfering with important family events made him question everything he thought he knew about her character. We decided we needed time to figure out how to handle the situation. Before having any contact with Linda, Ronald powered off his phone after receiving several text messages from his mother asking why we were ignoring her calls. Robert continued to call periodically, urging us to reconsider and give Linda a chance to properly explain herself. The engagement party was rescheduled for the following month, but the damage to our relationship with Linda seemed permanent. I couldn't fathom ever trusting her again, and Ronald was grappling with the realization that his mother was capable of such deliberate cruelty. The destroyed dress couldn't be replaced, and neither could the trust that had been shattered along with it. Update 1 ***. Many people requested an update, so here's what has transpired since my original post. The situation with Linda has deteriorated significantly, and we've uncovered some unsettling information about her past behavior. After we stopped accepting Linda's calls, she escalated her attempts to contact us. She began showing up at our apartment unannounced, usually when Ronald was at work. The first time this happened, I didn't open the door. She stood outside for 20 minutes, knocking and calling my name, claiming she merely wanted to apologize properly. I watched through the peephole as she tried the door handle multiple times. The second time Linda appeared, she brought Robert with her. He knocked more politely and asked if we could all sit down and discuss what had occurred. I opened the door because I felt sympathy for Robert, who seemed genuinely bewildered as to why his wife had destroyed my dress. Linda immediately pushed past him and started speaking rapidly about how sorry she was for the misunderstanding. Linda's apology was peculiar and manipulative. She persistently insisted she had been trying to help and that anyone could see the dress needed updating. She argued that modern women shouldn't wear outdated clothing to important events, and that she had been doing me a favor by making the dress more contemporary. When I pointed out that she had utterly destroyed an irreplaceable family heirloom, she dismissed my concerns by stating we could find something even better at a bridal shop. Robert looked increasingly uncomfortable as his wife spoke. He interrupted her several times to suggest she focus on apologizing rather than defending her actions. Linda ignored him and continued explaining why she thought the dress needed to be changed. She seemed genuinely unable to grasp why I was upset about losing my grandmother's dress. The conversation grew heated when Linda suggested I was being overly dramatic about the situation. She stated, "Young women today are too sentimental about old things and need to focus on the future instead of the past." She also implied that Ronald and I were being disrespectful to her by refusing to accept her apology and move on from the incident. Ronald arrived home while Linda was still talking. He had been working late to avoid dealing with his mother, but Robert had texted him asking him to come home for the conversation. Ronald listened to his mother's continuous justifications for about 5 minutes before asking both his parents to leave. Linda protested that they hadn't finished resolving the situation, but Ronald remained firm. After his parents left, Ronald informed me that his sister Patricia had called him at work with more information about Linda's behavior. Patricia had been reflecting on our situation and recalled several other incidents involving their mother's compulsion to control important family events. She promised to call me directly to share these stories. Patricia called me the next evening and spent over an hour detailing her experiences with Linda's controlling conduct. The wedding dress incident I mentioned in my original post was just one example. Patricia also told me about Linda's interference in her choice of college, her career decisions, and even her selection of a house after she got married. The most disturbing story Patricia shared involved Linda's behavior during Patricia's first pregnancy. Patricia had chosen to have a natural birth without pain medication, a decision she had researched extensively. Linda disagreed with this choice and spent months trying to convince Patricia to change her mind. When Patricia refused to budge, Linda called Patricia's doctor's office and attempted to impersonate Patricia to alter her birth plan. Patricia only discovered her mother's actions when the hospital called to confirm the changes to her medical records. The doctor's office had been suspicious of the call and wanted to verify the changes directly with Patricia. Linda denied making the call when confronted, but the hospital had an audio recording, and the voice was clearly hers. These stories helped me understand that Linda's destruction of my dress wasn't an isolated incident of poor judgment. She had a long history of attempting to override other people's decisions when they didn't align with her preferences. The pattern suggested that she genuinely believed she had superior insight into everyone else's lives. Ronald was heartbroken to learn about these incidents. He had known his mother was opinionated and sometimes pushy, but he hadn't realized the full scope of her interference in Patricia's life. He felt guilty for not protecting me better from someone he now recognized as having significant boundary issues. Robert called Ronald a few days after Patricia's revelations and asked to speak with him privately. They met for coffee, and Robert confided his own concerns about Linda's behavior. He admitted that he had been rationalizing his wife's controlling inclinations for years because he didn't want to deal with the conflict that came with challenging her. Robert told Ronald that Linda had grown progressively more controlling. Over the past decade, he couldn't pinpoint when the behavior had started getting worse, but he had noticed that she seemed unable to accept when other people made choices she disagreed with. He had hoped that she would eventually grow out of this phase, but the dress incident had made him realize that the problem was escalating instead of improving. The conversation with his father helped Ronald understand that we weren't overreacting to the dress situation. Even Linda's own husband recognized that her behavior was problematic and had been worsening over time. Robert didn't offer any solutions, but he promised not to pressure us to reconcile with Linda until she acknowledged the seriousness of what she had done. Meanwhile, Linda continued her campaign to compel reconciliation. She sent me lengthy text messages explaining her perspective on the dress incident and asking me to consider her feelings. She also started calling my mother directly, claiming that she wanted to apologize to our entire family for the misunderstanding. My mother was polite but firm with Linda. She listened to Linda's explanations, but told her that destroying someone's family heirloom was unacceptable, regardless of the motivation. Linda became defensive and started arguing with my mother about whether the dress had really been that important. My mother ended the conversation and blocked Linda's number after Linda suggested that my grandmother probably would have wanted the dress updated anyway. Linda's call to my mother crossed a significant boundary for me, involving my family. In her attempts to manipulate the situation showed that she was willing to escalate her behavior when she didn't get the response she wanted. I realized that any future contact with Linda would likely result in similar transgressions and manipulative ploys. Ronald and I decided to completely cut contact with Linda until she could demonstrate genuine understanding of why her actions were wrong. We blocked her phone number and social media accounts, and we asked Robert to stop serving as a messenger between us. We also decided to postpone our wedding planning until we could figure out how to handle Linda's inevitable interference. In those preparations, the stress of dealing with Linda's behavior was affecting other areas of our lives. Ronald was having trouble sleeping and had become withdrawn at work. I was constantly worried about Linda showing up at our apartment or finding new ways to contact us. We realized that we needed to take more decisive measures to protect ourselves from her manipulation and boundary violations. We decided to move to a new apartment across town. Our lease was up for renewal anyway, and relocating would hinder Linda's continued harassment. We didn't tell Robert our new address, knowing that he would probably share the information with Linda despite his good intentions. The move took place 2 weeks ago, and we haven't heard from Linda since. Robert has respected our request not to serve as a go-between, though he texts Ronald occasionally to check on how we're doing. Patricia has been supportive throughout this process and has offered to talk to her mother about getting professional help for her controlling behavior. We rescheduled our engagement party for next month at a venue across town. Only people who support our decision to cut contact with Linda will be invited. Robert will be welcome if he chooses to attend without Linda, but we've made it clear that Linda is not invited to any of our future events until she can acknowledge the harm she caused and commit to changing her behavior. The destroyed dress is still a source of pain for me, but I'm beginning to focus more on protecting myself from future incidents, rather than dwelling on what was lost. Linda's actions revealed her true character, and that information has helped us make better decisions about how much access to give her to our lives going forward. Update to the situation with Linda has taken several unexpected turns, and we've discovered that her problematic conduct runs much deeper than we initially knew. Robert has also made some decisions that have surprised everyone in the family. Our new apartment has been peaceful, and Linda seemed to have stopped trying to contact us directly. However, we started noticing some strange things happening around the time of our rescheduled engagement party. Someone had been asking our neighbors questions about our schedules and daily routines. Our building G manager mentioned that a woman matching Linda's description had tried to gain access to our floor by claiming to be delivering a package. The engagement party went well despite these concerning developments. Robert attended alone and seemed to enjoy celebrating with us. He looked more relaxed than we had seen him in months, and he spent a lot of time talking to my parents and other family members. During the party, Robert pulled Ronald aside and shared some information that explained Linda's recent behavior. Robert told Ronald that Linda had been driving by our old apartment building regularly, apparently trying to figure out where we had moved. She had also been calling our former neighbors and some of Ronald's co-workers, asking them if they knew our new address. Robert had only learned about this behavior when one of Ronald's colleagues called him to ask if everything was okay with the family. More disturbing was Robert's revelation that Linda had been creating fake social media accounts to monitor our online activity. She had been screenshotting our posts and photos, then analyzing them for clues about our new location and daily schedules. Robert discovered this when he found printed copies of our social media posts in Linda's car, along with handwritten notes about places we had been photographed. Robert seemed ashamed as he described Linda's stalking behavior. He said he had confronted her about it, but she insisted that she was just trying to find a way to apologize properly for the dress incident. Linda claimed that we were being unreasonable by refusing to give her a chance to make things right, and she felt justified in taking these steps to restore contact with us. The conversation with Robert made us realize that Linda's behavior had escalated beyond what we could handle on our own. Ronald and I decided to document all the incidents of harassment and stalking, and we filed a police report the following week. The police officer we spoke with said that Linda's behavior met the criteria for stalking under state law, and they would contact her to issue a formal warning. 2 days after we filed the police report, Patricia called with news that shocked everyone. Linda had been arrested for trespassing at Patricia's workplace in California. Patricia worked at a marketing firm downtown, and Linda had somehow gotten past building security and confronted Patricia in her office about our situation. According to Patricia, Linda had flown to California without telling anyone and had been trying to reach Patricia for several days. When Patricia didn't return her calls, Linda decided to show up at her workplace. Linda had told the security desk that she was Patricia's mother and that there was a family emergency, which is how she gained access to the building. Once Linda reached Patricia's office, she became agitated and started yelling about how Patricia and Ronald were turning the family against her. She demanded that Patricia call us and force us to speak with her. When Patricia refused and asked her mother to leave, Linda became more aggressive and started throwing things around the office. Patricia's co-workers called building security, who contacted the police when Linda refused to leave voluntarily. Linda was arrested for trespassing and disturbing the peace. She spent a night in jail before Robert could arrange to fly out and post bail for her. Patricia pressed charges and obtained a restraining order against her own mother. Robert called Ronald from California to explain what had happened. He sounded exhausted and said that Linda seemed to have completely lost touch with reality during the flight home. Linda had insisted that Patricia, Ronald, and I were all part of some conspiracy to destroy her family relationships. She couldn't understand why her behavior was being seen as problematic by anyone. The arrest and restraining order seemed to be a stark realization for Robert. When he returned home with Linda, he told her that she needed to get professional help for her behavior, or he would file for separation. Linda refused to consider counseling and accused Robert of abandoning her. When she needed support from her family, Robert moved out of their house the following week. He rented a small apartment across town and filed for legal separation from Linda. He sent Ronald a text message explaining his decision and apologizing for not taking action sooner to address Linda's escalating behavior. Robert said he finally understood that Linda's actions weren't just about grief over our engagement or disappointment about the dress situation. Linda's response to Robert's departure was to blame us even more intensely for destroying her marriage. She left voicemails on our old phone number claiming that we had manipulated her husband and daughter against her. She also sent letters to our old apartment building, which the manager forwarded to us. The letters contained increasingly bizarre theories about our motivations and accusations about our character. We shared these letters with the police officer handling our stalking complaint. The content was disturbing enough that the officer decided to issue a formal restraining order against Linda. We were also advised to vary our daily routines and to be alert for any signs that Linda might be following us or monitoring our activities. The restraining order was served on Linda 3 weeks ago. According to Robert, she became hysterical when she received the papers and accused the police of being part of the conspiracy against her. She tried to explain to the officers that she was the victim in this situation and that we were using the legal system to persecute her for trying to help with wedding preparations. Robert has been staying in regular contact with Ronald throughout this process. He seemed relieved to be away from Linda's increasingly erratic behavior, but he's also struggling with guilt about the end of his marriage. He started seeing a counselor to help him process 25 years of living with someone whose behavior had become progressively more controlling and manipulative. Patricia has been supportive from California, but she's also dealing with the aftermath of her mother's visit to her workplace. Her employer was understanding about the situation, But Patricia had to explain to her coworkers why her mother had been arrested in their office. She's considering changing jobs to get away from the awkwardness and potential professional consequences. We've been living quietly and trying to move forward with our wedding planning. The restraining order has given us some peace of mind, but we're still cautious about our daily routines and social media activity. We've decided to have a small, private wedding ceremony with only immediate family members who support our decision to maintain no contact with Linda. The whole experience has been eye-opening about how one person's refusal to respect boundaries can destroy multiple family relationships. Linda's inability to accept that she was wrong about the dress incident led to her losing contact with both her children, ending her marriage, and facing criminal charges. Her actions have had consequences that extend far beyond the original conflict, and she seems unable to recognize her role in creating these problems. Update 3 This will be my final update on the Linda situation. Recent events have brought some closure to this long ordeal, though not in the way anyone expected. 3 weeks after my last update, Robert received a call from Linda's neighbors saying that Linda hadn't been seen for several days, and her mail was piling up. Robert still had a key to their old house, so he went to check on her. He found Linda sitting in the living room, surrounded by what he described as a shrine dedicated to Ronald and Patricia's childhood. Linda had covered the walls with old family photos, school projects, and awards from when Ronald and Patricia were young. She had arranged furniture to create pathways between different displays, and she had been sleeping on the couch instead of in the bedroom. Robert said the house smelled terrible because Linda hadn't been maintaining basic hygiene or cleaning routines. When Robert tried to talk to Linda, she seemed confused about current events. She asked him where Ronald was and said she needed to help him get ready for his high school graduation. She also mentioned needing to pick Patricia up from soccer practice. Robert realized that Linda was having some kind of mental health crisis and called emergency services. Linda was taken to a hospital for psychiatric evaluation. The doctors determined that she was experiencing a severe psychological break, triggered by the stress of losing contact with her children and the end of her marriage. She was admitted to a residential treatment facility for intensive therapy and medication management. During Linda's evaluation, the medical team discovered that she had been experiencing symptoms of mental illness for several years. Robert provided information about her increasingly controlling behavior, her inability to accept other people's decisions, and her recent stalking and harassment activities. The doctor said these behaviors were consistent with certain personality disorders that had likely been developing gradually over time. Patricia flew home from California to help Robert deal with the situation. She spent several days cleaning their childhood home and sorting through Linda's belongings. Patricia told Ronald that their mother had been keeping detailed journals about our daily activities, including schedules she had pieced together from social media posts and information from people who knew us. The journals were disturbing evidence of how obsessed Linda had become with controlling our lives. She had written pages of analysis about our relationship, our career choices, and our wedding plans. She had also drafted letters that she planned to send to my employer and family members, describing me as a manipulative person who was destroying her son's life. Patricia and Robert decided to clean out the house completely and put it up for sale. Neither of them wanted to maintain the property while Linda was in treatment, and they weren't sure she would ever be stable enough to live independently again. They donated most of Linda's belongings to charity, keeping only a few items of sentimental value. The treatment facility recommended that Linda have no contact with family members. During her initial recovery period, the doctor said that her obsession with controlling her children's lives was a major factor in her psychological break, and exposure to information about our lives could interfere with her progress. Robert and Patricia agreed to respect this recommendation. We received this news with mixed emotions. On one hand, it was a relief to know that Linda was getting professional help and wouldn't be able to continue her harassment. On the other hand, it was sad to see someone's mental health deteriorate so severely, even someone who had caused us significant problems. Ronald struggled with guilt about his mother's hospitalization. He wondered if we should have handled the dress incident differently, or tried harder to maintain contact with Linda despite her problematic behavior. I reminded him that Linda's mental health issues were not caused by our decision to protect ourselves from her harassment and stalking. Robert has been the most affected by these recent developments. He blames himself for not recognizing the severity of Linda's mental health problems and not getting her help sooner. He's been attending therapy regularly and has made significant progress in understanding how Linda's behavior had affected the entire family over the years. Patricia decided to stay in California and has limited her contact with the situation. to occasional phone calls with Robert. She said she needs distance from the family drama to focus on her own mental health and career. She plans to maintain no contact with Linda even after her treatment is completed, saying that she can't risk exposing herself to further manipulation and boundary violations. Ronald and I got married 2 weeks ago in a small ceremony attended by Robert, my parents, and a few close friends. The wedding was beautiful and peaceful. Everything we had hoped it would be. Robert walked me down the aisle since my own father had passed away several years ago, and his presence made the day feel complete despite the absence of other family members. We haven't heard any updates about Linda's treatment progress, and we don't expect to for quite some time. The doctor said that recovery from her type of psychological break typically takes months or years, and there's no guarantee that she'll ever be able to maintain healthy relationships with family members. Robert is considering relocating to be closer to us, saying that he wants to build positive relationships with the family members who are still in his life. He's been a supportive father-in-law and seems to have learned from the mistakes he made in Avalon. Linda's behavior. Over the years, the destroyed wedding dress still represents a loss that can never be fully repaired, but it also served as an early warning about Linda's inability to respect boundaries. If she hadn't destroyed the dress, we might not have recognized the severity of her psychological problems until after we were married, and potentially had children for her to try to control. We've learned valuable lessons about the importance of protecting ourselves from people who refuse to respect reasonable boundaries, even when those people are family members. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone with serious mental health issues is to refuse to enable their harmful behavior, even if that means ending the relationship. Linda's situation has been a tragedy for everyone involved, but we're finally able to move forward with our lives without fear of harassment or stalking. We hope that she gets the help she needs and can eventually find peace, but we won't be part of that process. Some relationships can't be repaired, no matter how much love or effort you put into them. Story to I was a family disappointment until I revealed my sister's perfect life. Now, my parents are in therapy. I never imagined I'd be pouring my heart out on Reddit. But here I am. I'm Liam to 8M, and I've always been the responsible one in my family. Growing up, money was tight. My dad juggled 2 jobs, working as a mechanic during the day and a security guard at night. Mom picked up shifts at the local diner whenever she could. They did everything possible to keep food on the table and a roof over our heads. From a young age, I grasped the value of hard work. I started mowing lawns and shoveling snow for neighbors when I was just 12. Consistently saving half of my earnings. By 16, I was working part-time at the local grocery store, stocking shelves and bagging groceries. It wasn't glamorous, but it instilled in me the worth of $1. My sister, Mia, to 5F, had a different experience. She's always been the golden child, 3 years younger than me, but seemingly light years ahead in our parents' eyes. While I was expected to contribute to household expenses, Mia was encouraged to concentrate on her studies and extracurricular activities. Don't misunderstand, she's bright and gifted, but the disparity in our treatment was difficult to ignore. I recall one particularly painful incident when I was 17. I'd been saving for months to buy a used car. Nothing fancy, just something to get me to work and school. The day I planned to make the purchase, Mom asked to borrow my savings for Mia's dance competition fees. It wasn't a request I could refuse. I watched my car dreams drive away while Mia twirled in an expensive costume. Despite the challenges, I managed to put myself through community college, studying business management while working full-time. It was exhausting, but I was determined to make something of myself. Meanwhile, Mia breezed through high school, earning academic awards and securing a full-ride scholarship to a prestigious university. The day Mia left for college was bittersweet. I was proud of her accomplishments, but I couldn't help feeling left behind. Our parents threw her a lavish going-away party, inviting the entire extended family. I still remember Aunt Sarah's words, "Mia is going to change the world someday," and Liam, well, he's a good boy. The pity in her eyes stung more than any insult ever could. With Mia gone, I immersed myself in work. I'd always had a knack for design, spending hours sketching in my free time. One day, on a whim, I transformed one of my sketches into a simple beaded bracelet. A coworker saw it and asked if I could make one for her. That was the spark that ignited my business. I started small, crafting jewelry in my tiny apartment kitchen and selling it online. It was slow going at first, but I poured every spare minute and dollar into it. I learned about marketing, product photography, and customer service through countless late nights and YouTube tutorials. Slowly but surely, my little shop grew. 3 years after I started, I had saved enough to rent a small space in town and open a proper boutique. It was a huge risk, but it paid off. People love the personal touch of handmade jewelry, and word spread quickly in our small community. Soon, I was able to expand into accessories and even some clothing items. Last month marked 5 years since I started my business. To celebrate, my parents suggested a big family gathering at my grandmother's house for her 80th birthday. It seemed like perfect timing. I was excited to share my success with everyone, especially those who had doubted me. The day of the party arrived and I felt a mix of nervousness and pride as I drove to Grandma's. I brought some of my best pieces to show the family, including a special necklace I designed just for Grandma. As I walked up the driveway, I could hear laughter and chatter from the backyard. I rounded the corner, gifts in hand, and stopped short. There was Mia holding court in the center of the lawn. She looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine in her designer dress, her hair and makeup flawless. But what caught everyone's eye was a massive diamond ring glittering on her left hand. Apparently, Mia had gotten engaged to some hotshot lawyer she met at university. She'd been keeping it a secret, waiting for the perfect moment to announce it, and what better moment than stealing the spotlight at Grandma's birthday? Our parents were beside themselves with joy. Mom was already discussing wedding venues, while Dad beamed with pride. The rest of the family crowded around Mia, oohing and ahhing over the ring. I stood on the outskirts, my carefully wrapped gift feeling inadequate in my hands. Eventually, Mia noticed me. "Oh, Liam," she exclaimed, kissing my cheek. "I'm so glad you could make it. I was just telling everyone about Daniel's law firm. They do a lot of work with small businesses. Maybe they could help out with your little shop sometime." The way she said little shop, like it was a cute hobby rather than my livelihood, made my stomach churn, but I plastered on a smile and congratulated her, determined not to let her ruin the day. As the party progressed, I tried to engage with family members about my business, but every conversation inevitably turned back to Mia's engagement or her brilliant career prospects. Even my special gift for Grandma was overshadowed by the extravagant cruise tickets Mia had bought her. The final straw came during dinner. I was talking to our cousin about potentially expanding my business when Mia interrupted. She started going on about how Daniel was looking to invest in some real businesses, and how she could put in a good word for me. The way she said it, like she was doing me a huge favor, made my blood boil. I excused myself and went out to the front porch, needing some air. A few minutes later, Mia came out. For a moment, I thought maybe she'd realized how hurtful she'd been. Instead, she asked if she could borrow my car. Apparently, Daniel was coming to pick her up, and she wanted to make a grand exit in something nicer than her old college car. Something in me snapped. Years of pent-up frustration came pouring out. I told her exactly what I thought of her behavior, how she'd always looked down on me, and how I was sick of being treated like the family disappointment. I brought up every instance of favoritism, every backhanded compliment, every time she'd made me feel small. Mia looked shocked, then angry. She called me jealous and small-minded, saying I'd never amount to anything if I kept this attitude. She said I should be grateful for any help she offered. Given my limited prospects, our argument got pretty heated, and soon the whole family was outside watching. Our parents tried to intervene, but I was beyond caring. I told them how their favoritism had affected me, how I worked hard for everything I had, while Mia had everything handed to her on a silver platter. In the end, I left the party early, ignoring the calls of my stunned family members. I've been avoiding their calls and messages since then. Part of me feels guilty for ruining my grandmother's birthday, but another part feels relieved to have finally stood up for myself. Am I wrong for finally speaking up? Should I have just kept quiet and let Mia have her moment? I don't know how to move forward from here, but I know I can't go back to being the family doormat. Update 1 It's been about a month since the blow-up at my grandmother's birthday party, and a lot has happened. First off, thank you to everyone who commented and offered support. It really helped me gain perspective on the situation after a week of radio silence. My parents reached out. They wanted to meet for coffee and talk things through. I was hesitant, but I agreed. We met at a small cafe downtown, neutral ground for what I expected to be a difficult conversation. To my surprise, they actually listened to me. Mom cried when I explained how their favoritism had made me feel all these years. I told them about the car incident from when I was 17, how it felt to watch my dreams take a back seat to Mia's wants. Dad was quieter, but I could see the guilt in his eyes when I recounted all the times they praised Mia's achievements while overlooking mine. They apologized for not realizing how their actions had affected me. They admitted they'd always seen me as needing more support while they thought I was self-sufficient. It wasn't an excuse, but it helped me understand their perspective a bit better. Mom confessed that she'd always worried about Mia's self-esteem, so she overcompensated by praising her excessively. Dad said he saw so much of himself in me, hardworking, independent, that he assumed I didn't need as much attention. We talked for hours, dredging up old hurts and misunderstandings. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when I wanted to walk out, but we pushed through. By the end, we'd agreed to work on our relationship. They promised to make more of an effort to recognize my achievements and to be more equitable in their treatment of Mia and me. As for Mia, she hasn't spoken to me directly, but she sent a text saying she needed time to process everything. I'm okay with that. I think we both need space to reflect. From what Mom told me, Mia was pretty shaken by our confrontation. Apparently, she'd never realized how her actions had affected me. It doesn't excuse her behavior, but it's a start. The most unexpected development came from my extended family. My Aunt Sarah, the one who had dismissed me at Mia's going away party years ago, called me a few days after the blow-up. She apologized for her past behavior and admitted she'd been wrong about me. It turns out she'd been following my businesses, social media, and was impressed by what I'd accomplished. Sarah owns a small chain of boutiques in the city and offered to mentor me. She even suggested potentially stocking some of my products in her stores. It's a huge opportunity, and I'm excited to see where it leads. We've had a few meetings already, and her advice has been invaluable. She's helping me streamline my production process and expand my product line. I've also been focusing on self-improvement. A friend recommended a life coach, and I decided to give it a try. It's not therapy, but it's been really helpful in building my confidence and setting boundaries. We've been working on strategies to assert myself without being confrontational and to recognize my own worth. Independent of others' opinions, my business has been doing well, too. The publicity from my aunt has brought in new customers, and I'm even hiring my first employee next week. It's a big step, but I feel ready for it. I've been putting in long hours to prepare for the expansion, but it feels good to see my hard work paying off. One of the most significant changes has been in how I view myself. For so long, I defined my worth by how my family saw me. Now I'm learning to appreciate my own accomplishments. The other day I caught myself smiling at my reflection, something I can't remember doing in years. I know there's still a long way to go in healing my family relationships, but for the first time in years I feel hopeful. I'm learning that it's okay to stand up for myself and that my feelings are valid. I'm not angry anymore, just determined to create a life that makes me happy. There have been moments of doubt, times when I've wondered if I did the right thing by speaking up. But then I look at how much has changed in just a month, and I know it was necessary. It's like lancing a wound, painful, but essential for healing. As for what's next, I'm taking it one day at a time. I'm focusing on my business, my personal growth, and rebuilding my family relationships on healthier terms. It's not always easy, but it feels right for the first time in a long time. I'm excited about the future. **** update to ****. It's been 3 months since my last update, and things have taken an unexpected turn. I thought I was on the path to reconciliation with my family, but life had other plans. Remember how I mentioned Mia's fiancé, Daniel? Well, it turns out he wasn't the knight in shining armor she made him out to be. About a month ago, Mia showed up at my apartment in tears. Her perfect relationship had imploded spectacularly. Apparently, Daniel had been using her to climb the social ladder. He came from old money but had been cut off by his family due to some shady business dealings. He saw me as his ticket back into high society. When he realized our family wasn't as well connected as he thought, he broke off the engagement and left Mia high and dry. To make matters worse, Mia had quit her job to plan their lavish wedding. She was suddenly unemployed, single, and completely lost. Despite our past issues, I couldn't turn her away. I let her crash on my couch while she figured things out. Living with Mia has been interesting. At first, she was a mess. She'd cry for hours, then get angry and lash out. I almost kicked her out several times, but something always stopped me. Maybe it was seeing her vulnerable for the first time, or maybe I just didn't want to stoop to her level. It brought back memories of when we were kids before the favoritism and competition took over. Mia and I were actually close. I remembered how we used to build blanket forts in the living room, how she'd come to me with scraped knees for me to bandage. Somewhere along the way, we lost that connection. Slowly, things started to change. Mia began to help out around the apartment. She took an interest in my business, even offering to model some of my jewelry for social media. We started talking, really talking for the first time in years. One night over a bottle of wine, Mia broke down and apologized for everything. She admitted she'd always been jealous of my independence and drive. Her put-downs were a way to make herself feel better about her own insecurities. It wasn't an excuse, but it was a start. She told me about the pressure she felt to live up to her parents' expectations, how she'd always felt like she was one misstep away from disappointing them. It made me see her in a new light. We've both been damaged by our parents' behavior, just in different ways. As for our parents, they're trying. They call both of us equally now. and they started therapy to work on their own issues. It's a slow process, but I can see they're making an effort. Last week they came over for dinner, something that would have been unthinkable a few months ago. It was awkward at times, but it felt like a step in the right direction. My business continues to grow. The collaboration with my aunt has been a huge success, and I'm opening a second location next month. Mia's been helping out at the shop, and she's actually pretty good at it. She has an eye for display and customer service that complements my design skills. Mia is talking about going back to school for business management. She seems excited about the prospect of building something for herself rather than trying to live up to others' expectations. It's strange to think that my little sister might end up working for me, but in a good way. I never thought I'd say this, but this whole mess might have been the best thing to happen to our family. We're not perfect and we still have a long way to go. But for the first time, it feels like we're all on the same team. There are still moments of tension, old habits that die hard, but we're learning to communicate better, to address issues as they come up rather than letting them fester. It's not always easy, but it feels worthwhile as I write this. Mia's in the other room working on a business plan for her own accessory line. I can hear her muttering to herself as she crunches numbers. It makes me smile. For the first time in years, I feel like I have my sister back. Update 3 ***. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I'm still amazed at how much has changed. Mia has been living with me this whole time, and I have to say it's been good for both of us. Mia has really turned things around. She enrolled in a business management course at the local community college, and has been applying herself like never before. It reminds me of when we were kids and she gets so focused on a new hobby that she loses track of time. Only now, instead of friendship bracelets or skateboarding, it's financial projections and marketing strategies. She's also become an integral part of my business. Her social media skills have boosted her online presence and sales have never been better. She has a knack for engaging with customers that I never quite mastered. The other day, I overheard her on the phone with a client, smoothly handling a complaint and turning it into a repeat customer. I couldn't help but feel proud. Our relationship has improved dramatically. We still bicker sometimes, we are siblings after all, but it's playful now, not malicious. We've been unpacking years of misunderstandings and hurt feelings. It's not always easy, but it's been incredibly healing. Last week, we stayed up late looking through old family photo albums. We laughed at our awkward school pictures and cringed at our fashion choices. But we also talked about the memories behind the photos, both good and bad. It felt like we were rediscovering our shared history, but this time without the competition and resentment. Our parents have made progress, too. They've been seeing a family therapist and it's helped them understand the impact of their past behavior. They're making a conscious effort to treat us equally now. Last month, they surprised us both by investing in my business. It wasn't about the money, but the gesture meant the world to me. We started having weekly family dinners. At first, they were awkward affairs with stilted conversations, long silences, but gradually, we found our rhythm. We talk about our weeks, share funny stories, and even discuss deeper topics. It's not perfect, there are still moments of tension, but it feels like we're building something real. The biggest surprise came last week. Remember my Aunt Sarah, who offered to mentor me? She's planning to retire next year and has offered to sell me her chain of boutiques. It's a huge opportunity, but also a big risk. Mia and I spent days going over the numbers and discussing the pros and cons. We went back and forth on it. I was excited about the potential for growth, but worried about taking on such a big commitment. Mia was enthusiastic from the start, seeing it as a chance for us to build something together. We even had a heated argument one night, falling back into old patterns of competition. But we managed to talk it through, really listening to each other's concerns and ideas. In the end, we decided to go for it together. Mia will handle the business side of things while I focus on design and production. It's a big step, but I feel confident with her by my side. We're meeting with Sarah next week to start hammering out the details. As for my original boutique, it's thriving. We've hired 2 more employees and are looking at expanding our online presence. Mia has been instrumental in streamlining our processes and improving our customer service. It's strange to think that just a year ago, I was doing everything on my own. Looking back, I can hardly believe how much has changed. From feeling like the family failure to running a successful business with my sister, it's been quite a journey. There have been ups and downs, moments of doubt and moments of triumph. But through it all, I've learned so much about myself, my family, and what really matters. I've learned that sometimes the worst moments in our lives can lead to the best outcomes if we're willing to be honest, vulnerable, and open to change. I've learned that it's never too late to heal old wounds and build new relationships. And I've learned that success means nothing if you don't have people to share it with. I know we'll face challenges ahead. Running a business with family isn't always easy, and we're bound to have disagreements. Our parents are still learning how to navigate their new relationship with us, and there's always the possibility that old habits could resurface. But for the first time, I feel like our family is truly united. We're not perfect, but we're trying. And that's what counts. We're learning to communicate, to support each other, and to celebrate each other's successes without feeling diminished. As I sit here writing this, I can hear Mia in the kitchen humming as she makes dinner. Another new development. Turns out she's a pretty good cook when she puts her mind to it. Mom just texted to confirm our plans for the weekend, and Dad sent a terrible dad joke to our family group chat. It's these little moments that make me realize how far we've come. To anyone out there struggling with family issues, I want to say it's okay to stand up for yourself. It's okay to demand respect and equal treatment, and it's okay if the path to healing isn't smooth. What matters is that you keep trying, keep communicating, and keep believing in the possibility of change. Thank you all for following my journey. Your support and advice have meant more than you know. Here's to new beginnings and the families we choose to build.